So, having accepted that this menobelly is definitely a thing, I wanted to just go briefly into why that actually happens. Is it just my hormones? It's my hormones. Well, the answer is quite possibly it's to do with your hormones. During our perimenopause and menopausal years, your hormones don't just steadily drop down. Everybody says, oh, my estrogen's going down and down and down, and my progesterone's going down and down and down. But that isn't necessarily what happens to everybody. For some people, they actually become estrogen dominant, and that's because their progesterone's dropping lower than their estrogen. So instead of having a nice balance, they've got one that's definitely dominant and one that's definitely recessive. So some people might become estrogen dominant. Other people might become what's called androgen dominant. They might have their hormones balancing out in another way. So whilst the fluctuations in your hormones do affect the way that fat is stored, there are other things that affect it too. It's quite interesting. The effect of your hormones fluctuating causes two different types of people. You're often either an apple or you're a pear. So some people basically end up getting more fat all over their body. They have an increase in this abdominal fat, they have more fat under their skin, and they turn into this sort of apple shape around their stomach. But other people who have different menopausal hormonal issues might actually become almost more pear-shaped. They sometimes have less peripheral fat. The bottom goes. They become the bottom goes just like a straight line down behind them. There's nothing to get hold of. They may actually have reduced muscle. They become quite scrawny on their sort of limbs. There's no muscle on their limbs, so they've got no bottom, no muscle. And so they actually have decreased peripheral fat, but what they have got is sitting around their stomach. So you might see two different types of shape of person, an apple shape and a pear person. But there is no doubt that there are other factors at play. It isn't just our hormones. And people often say, I'm honestly not doing anything different. And then I say to you, walk down a busy town or high street on, I don't know, a Saturday lunchtime or a Thursday night, and you're really quite likely to see hordes of menopausal women, perimenopausal women, out for brunch, out for lunch, out on girls' nights, having gin club tastings, going for Prosecco's, empty, bottomless, what do they call bottomless Prosecco drinks, bottomless Prosecco brunches. And there is no doubt that around the menopause age, we may be able to spend a little bit more time on our social interactions, and we spend that money in restaurants and often eating. So whilst in the home we might not be doing anything different, when we're out and about, you may well be socializing and intaking far more calories than you ever used to. The other thing that often happens is that we just stop moving as much. So the reason that your muscle goes is because you're not actively generating muscle. And if you're not actively generating muscle, then your body doesn't need as much fuel in the form of calories to keep it going. So you keep putting the same amount of food into it, and it's not got the engine requirements to burn up that food. And then that gets transferred to fat, doesn't it? So yes, your hormones are a big part of this menopausal weight gain. And depending on how your hormones fluctuate, and only somebody who's going to do hormone testing will be able to tell you which side of the fence you lie on, you might find that you've become a different shape. But any fat that you have got may well be focusing on your middle. But it's often the other things that you're doing that will be contributing to that as well, such as eating out. The other thing that tends to happen is we're not sleeping very well, we've got anxiety, we may not be eating particularly healthily when we're eating at home, and we may be exposed to something called xenoestrogens. These are the fake estrogens, toxins if you like, around us. And over the next few videos, I'm going to go into those in a little bit more depth. I hope you look forward to enjoying those too. Bye!